start with what everybody's talking about, which is Sora.
Sora.
Sora 2. What was your impression so far?
I have been shocked. At first I was like, okay, it's like VO3. There's these tools. They add audio. They do pretty good visuals. But now that I've spent several days creating content, realizing the power of the way that it's built, sort of in the short form format, including being integrated into essentially a TikTok competitor. I mean, you can
Yeah.
tell that's where this is going. Um, it's just like such a better experience, and it's probably going to be so much more impactful and profitable than VO3 and the same kind of model. So the packaging of the tool with the tool, the game plan for it, it just feels like this is something worth paying attention to.
Yeah. And one thing that's, I think, very interesting is that, so I kind of had this epiphany, maybe is basically about where OpenAI is going, and seeing a lot of people talk about this online as well. But basically, so it seems like they're creating a lot of stuff that's going to match them up against Google a little bit more, because already they have a big reach. I'm sure a lot more people, I know I am searching on ChatGPT now a lot more than I used to on Google. So my Google use is going down as my ChatGPT use is going up. Now they also want to monetize the free users. How do you do that? Well, they announced Pulse. Pulse is kind of like a daily sort of news thing that gives you your personalized news. It's an algorithmic feed that you control. So you can say, I want to see less of this, more of this, etc. I mean, that's an incredible way to monetize users by serving them ads. Sora 2 is a social network. Guess what? We're going to have ads appearing there soon, eventually,
Do you,
100%.
okay, I was going to ask about that. You feel like that's coming soon?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where every single platform, once it gets big enough, it starts doing ads. It's just the way to monetize at scale. It's too sweet of a sort of revenue opportunity to ignore. And I mean, we've seen how easily ads are integrated into TikTok and Google Shorts, how easy it is to get somebody to pop into a live stream, a promoted live stream, etc. So, and think about how easy it's going to be to slip ads in the AI generated content. Already there's tons of people on X right now saying how that UGC, user generated content
Getting
that a lot of,
content, yeah.
yeah, e-commerce brands use. Those influencers, those people are no longer needed because you can easily create something in Sora 2 where it's usually a very pretty female holding up the product going, oh my God, I can't believe this product, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing. Buy it. Something along those lines. That can be 100% AI generated. And you can, in those few split seconds, if they can hold your attention for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, you can do a pretty effective pitch on a product. So this is just ripe for ads, I feel like.
You know what? You've probably heard me kind of rail on the whole thing that I don't love the idea of an AI system being powered by ads because it's literally going to lead to manipulation. It just seems like the last thing I want is the advertisement to be generated specifically to target my weaknesses.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what could happen here. Like this could be the kind of content that is just generated on the fly, maybe specifically for each person. And yeah, I don't know. Does
I,
that worry you at
I
all? Or do you
100
think that'll be okay? Will they be able to put walls up that'll make you
one-
trust it?
100%, it worries me. Not so much with the TikTok AI slop, whatever. Like, that's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is more like, when I use ChatGPT for research, I don't want the answers to be influenced by ads, right? So if I'm looking for the best product, I wanted to find the best product based on the research that it did. And I'd be like, oh, but if I promote this thing, we get paid. So definitely my fear is more in that sort of search based. How do ads affect that? And so we're going to have to see how they build that out, because there's obviously a wrong and a right way of doing it. In terms of ads that are in the entertainment things, like on Sora, TikTok, etc., that doesn't concern me as much as there's certain places where you can't have that ad influence, right? So doctors shouldn't be prescribing stuff based on how much they get paid to prescribe that stuff, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Of course not. Yeah. Imagine what that
News
does.
news shouldn't cover stuff that benefits them. So there's certain sources of information that should be sort of untouched by that commercial interest. Um, and that's to me now, ChatGPT is becoming that for me more and more. The TikTok whatever, not so much. You know what I mean? Still not great, but just not as big of a concern.
Right. Okay. So Pulse, Checkout, and Sora. So we'll talk about the actual content in a second. But what do you think about Checkout? Is that going to be? Do you see it all coming together here?
I mean, I feel like if they sort of win, if this plan works out and they're able to scale it up, I mean, they become sort of the next Google, right? Because the amount of shopping online. So they've already integrated Etsy and they're working on integrating Shopify. So outside of like the big brands like Amazon, Walmart, right, sort of like the giants, the medium-sized stores and a lot of large stores and all the small stores mostly run on Shopify. So it's kind of that platform for third-party sellers. I did e-commerce for close to a decade. I've used mostly Shopify. That's the only platform I've personally used, other than being on Etsy and Amazon and those other marketplaces. But Shopify has got the biggest reach. It has a massive presence. So if ChatGPT starts integrating with Shopify and driving traffic to Shopify, I mean, that really changes the game, I think, for a lot of sellers. So all of a sudden, you got to start thinking about not just SEO, search engine optimization. You got to, whatever, chat EO or whatever, how do you optimize ChatGPT to drive the stuff to your store? And obviously, that's another big opportunity to place ads. And that's a whole thing. I do want to. I know it's going to be big if they manage to get it right. I would love to talk to somebody in that field to maybe get some insight into how they're going to sort of do it and what the actual like technical approaches will be. But this feels big between Pulse shopping, checkout, and Sora. Man, they have so much room and
Yeah,
bandwidth.
absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about how so this gorilla on stage has this chain, right? Like, why couldn't that chain have been generated from an item that's on Amazon right now? Like, why not, right? Like, does it have to be a generic chain? And truly, does it even need to be labeled as an ad? Because if you wanted the chain on the gorilla making the joke or whatever he's doing, the rap, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's all going to be so integrated. And I mean, this video of you, like that wetsuit, you could just click on the wetsuit and order it from Amazon, or this fishing pole or this Mario game, Like it's just the integration is going to be so tightly coupled to the content that's generated. It's going to look different than any model we've had before. I don't know what labeling is going to look like. I don't know what people are going to feel the difference is between an advertisement and a regular piece of content, but this bridge can be closed if that's what they want from the business.
One thing that YouTube recently did, or in the process of doing, is now it's going to allow YouTubers to insert their sponsorships and take them in and out of videos. So instead of uploading the whole video with your sponsorship already sort of spliced in there, it's going to allow you to put it in, take it out. So it's acting almost more as a, I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff on my feed
Yeah,
as
there's not that much content on the whole channel yet,
um,
like the whole network.
yeah, but anyways, I do want to show people some of the stuff that I saw. So some of it is surprisingly pretty good. But to finish my thought, so the idea of now thinking of this as real estate where you can come in and out and put things in and splice things in. So like with the gorilla example that you had, it's wearing a chain. I think it's going to be very realistic to put in a product, not just the beginning, right? So not if you just thought of it when you're generating, but if it takes off, it goes viral, somebody reaches out, hey, I'll pay you to put my chain in that gorilla or whatever on that gorilla's neck. And you're going to be able to
Oh, you
switch
see it
the
the other way. Okay.
yeah, so they can pay you on a 30-day basis, like here for 30 days, put this on there or whatever, CPM or whatever. So I feel like the advertising aspect is going to be so much more integrated with this AI generate stuff. And again,
Wow, that's a mind-blowing idea because now all of a sudden so if you've ever placed an ad on Instagram, you kind of know there's demographics, right? Like you could do women or men, or you can do like this like geography, this city, this state, the kind of people who like this interest. But yeah,
mhm.
if now what you're saying is that you can place your item out onto content, and almost everybody has an AI that customizes it for them, you can probably just click something that says people who will buy it, or like this exact demographic, and it's going to be able to figure that whole thing out. I mean, we've seen the algorithm update now on YouTube, so it takes a guess as to whether you're underage or not. That same guessing could be applied to where that gorilla chain ends up.
Yeah, and I mean, just so people know where, I mean, I'm coming from, and I think Dylan, you're probably the same way. So it's not that we're necessarily like excited about this stuff. It's more like, we kind of, I think most people realize where it's going. So we do want to make sure that we're sort of talking about where things are going. It's not necessarily, I mean, am I happy about there being more AI generated content and AI influencers and this ultra customized marketing stuff being so much easier to interweave into content? Do I think that makes the world a better place? Not necessarily, but that's where this is going.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it did kind of feel like an epiphany when I thought about how advertising will change, but not because I need that in the world, just because I can just see how big that's going to be for these people.
Exactly,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, and the other thing about the integration is there's so many how do you put this? Like there's this, I don't know. I guess I kind of lost my thought, but the idea of everybody getting their own piece of content it just changes kind of everything that I've thought about. It's not channel surfing, it's not clicking through YouTube videos. It's just different. It just changes so much about what it means to say. Like, have you actually sat and just scrolled the platform the same way you would Instagram Reels or TikTok or YouTube Shorts?
So I'm very careful to avoid, I don't have Facebook or Instagram. Well, I
Okay.
just made Instagram, I think, because we were talking about it. So I'm at some point probably need to start posting on there. TikTok, I've avoided when it just came out. It was big. I tried it and I felt like it just would suck me into this hole, and then time would go by and I couldn't break out of it. Like something about it, I was like, this is like we went too far with this addiction element. So I don't touch it. And then I don't like the fact that it's coming to YouTube now. I don't like that. Here
Okay.
it's a little bit different. Um, because number one, really I'm not a fan of just watching the crap go by. But really, what I'm excited about, what I thought was super interesting, is the cameo appearances.
Yes. Let's
And
talk about that.
yeah, and so there's been a few articles that were out about this stuff. So because this is so new, I think a lot of people still don't understand what it is. So maybe we should take a second to explain to people what it is. So each person on here
Everyone, I'm out on the city
is able to
walls in Dubrovnik.
create their own avatar, AI avatar, if you will, by basically recording your face. You got to say a few things. And then if everything checks out, then you're able to, use something like this, type in some words, and then it puts you in that situation. Then you have 100% control over this. You're able to allow either everyone to use your avatar or select a group of people or mutual. So if you follow them, they follow you. So you have a lot of control into who gets to use this. And also, as far as I can tell, they do a very good job of not allowing bad things to happen to you. I mean,
You've
you know,
tested that?
well, I've just been looking at what people produce with
Yeah.
Sam Altman.
Okay.
And while there has been borderline stuff, there's only one clip that I saw. I was like, oof, like this is a little bit probably
Too
inappropriate.
far.
But other than that, I mean, yeah, there's one where his head is sticking out of a toilet and he's singing, and some people might say that's bad or whatever, but it's all within kind of this goofy
It's the
thing,
internet, yeah.
like nothing horrible.
Rounding out that.
And I've seen how many people made stuff with him in it? Like millions of clips with him at this point. I haven't seen one that's just horrible.
I was shocked to see so many famous people. I thought there'd just be these crazy filters on it. Like you have Bob Ross, you've got Michael Jackson, you've got characters from video games in here. And the reason why this really surprised me is because it's not really what you see from the image generator inside of GPT, Chat GPT, right? Like Dolly 1 and 2 didn't do that. They didn't take it this loose. VO doesn't like really let you generate this kind of stuff. So they really went all out, and they're absolutely just asking to be sued. But I think that's part of the strategy. So here's kind of what I think's gonna happen. Let me play this like Star Trek clip, and you can see they actually decided to. I asked for a Star Trek styled video. They actually decided to put the Star Trek emblem that looks really close on there, and then check out the style this video is done
Readings
in.
confirm it's real, sir.
Lieutenant, bring up the world we detected on long range, the one that looks like it's built out of blocks.
Aye, Captain. Routing it to the main viewer. Displaying now.
Incredible. It's like a video game grew into a planet.
All readings confirm it's real, sir.
Okay,
Lieutenant, bring up the
so
world we detected.
so what I'm trying to get there is that what's going to happen is the same thing YouTube did. They took actual music from real artists and they let it be uploaded to YouTube years ago when this was not acceptable yet. And then a bunch of companies sued them, right? Like Taylor Swift didn't want her song on there and not getting paid for it. And then throughout the lawsuit, they kind of introduced this ability to identify when the song was being used and tag it. And then if there was an advertisement ran on it, share some of that revenue back with the company that owns Taylor Swift's music. And then that kind of opened the door to what we saw with TikTok, where they were more on a Chinese server. So they even pushed it sort of further the way Sam is right here and just said, put it out there and then slowly make sure that the companies see the benefit in the amount of views that they get. In making it trending means that you'll sell more albums when you're on tour. And then it kind of just sort of diluted the whole system down into what we live through now. So I think identity is next. And to me, this was a big shocker, but I guess Star Trek has to let go of like control over their whole brand. And they're probably just going to have to say, all right, every time someone like me, a random person on the internet, generates something that looks like Star Trek and it has the Star Trek emblem, as long as it's PG rated and it's not hurting our brand, we should just let it go. And then maybe if there's a gold chain on me and somebody clicks that and goes to Amazon, the company that owns Star Trek, Paramount, would get some money. Or maybe an advertisement is built into the ad and Paramount gets some money. Or there's an advertisement before or after it and they get some money. And it ends up just being this weird mismatch of IP being very different all of a sudden. Like I really question if this is a move that's gonna could like shake all fundamental IP like across the whole industry.
So we interviewed Ed Sachi a few weeks ago, I think, and I gotta give him a lot of credit because as we were talking, he made his vision of what's going to happen to me felt so much ahead of everyone else. But interestingly, over the last few weeks, I'm like, oh no, I think this is where all the big companies are heading. This is where that was a very strange video it did of me. But
Yeah,
so
strange.
I gotta show people. I'll show some of my favorite clips in a second here. But his idea was that these AI models, number one, like, yes. So what we're talking about is like you will have sort of control over your likeness, your appearance, and we're already seeing that with Sora too. Like I can control where I appear. I did a little PSA yesterday on Twitter. I'm like, by the way, if you make cameos of people, and those cameos, like those videos, they're still private, so they're in your sort of private folder, those people can see your videos. So I was like, some of you people are making some weird stuff with me, and I can see it.
And not publishing it.
Yeah, even though you're not publishing it, I can still see it. But I do have control over that, so I can actually delete. I can click delete if I'm in a video that somebody has in there.
And can't you kind of see how that's going to the next step of like you also now Taylor Swift can also identify herself and can probably get some of that revenue back because the system itself knows where this content is.
Yes, and not only that, but the thing is, what Ed Sachi, where he kind of blew my mind, is he was saying, because remember we were saying how, oh, but it's gonna destroy certain things because somebody's going to take, Captain Picard and they're going to make him do something super silly, and it's going to sort of like devalue that brand, that character, that world. And you're saying, no, 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 like the AI model will allow you
Mm.
or the copyright holder, the IP holder, to control how those characters get sort of used. So if they want very strict controls to where they can't be sort of out of canon, so to speak, they can only act like they're supposed to within that storyline, you can preserve that. And with Sora, there is custom instructions. So if I don't want people to put me in certain positions, literally or figuratively or whatever,
Yeah, it's
I can say that if I don't want to be associated with certain
like
political things, I can do that. So yeah, we're already seeing that a little bit.
yeah, that is, man, this thing is, I feel like I'm just like unpeeling this onion of interesting ideas that Sam Altman had already figured out that I'm just learning. But you know what? That is such a profound thought, and it blows my mind to think about that. But yeah, I guess, and I hadn't thought about this before, but Picard from Paramount could be assigned that IP, like they're in charge of where the Picard deepfakes go. And on their end, they would have a piece of memory, and they would say Picard has these personality types. He's only seen in a leadership position. He's never bent over, looking stupid. He's never put in the past, or whatever their long kind of custom instruction is for him. And then people like you and me, we go to generate a skit where it's like Dylan and Picard, like on a podcast. And if it doesn't align with that custom instruction, then Paramount doesn't allow it. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Ed Sachi was the first person that kind of, when he was saying that, it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, like the AI thing the model not just produces whatever anybody wants it to, it will control the actual sort of how you can represent that character.
So
And
help me imagine, what does that world look like? So maybe I can't generate a fight with Logan Paul without him winning or something like that, if he wants to take it that far.
well, so I think with the sort of the influencers, it's going to be different than with the IP, with the actual, like, whatever, Lord of the Rings, Iron Man, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of brands, like what we were talking about in Hollywood, they're not going to necessarily want to opt out of these ecosystems. Because, yeah, their characters might be getting used on the platform. And normally they would not want that. They're like, nope, we're not getting paid, so you guys can't use it. Now it's different because it's like the people on that platform can use your IP in the way that you designate to be used, to play with that and sort of interact with that. So similar how streamers play video games, right? So most video game companies are not like, oh, let's block that streamer from streaming our game, because it's like, no, he's sharing it with his audience. So I'm sure they're gonna be care, number one, about getting the money, getting some cut of the revenue if that generates any revenue, and also not, you know, I'm sure they don't want their characters saying horrible stuff that gets them in trouble. And then they're gonna have, which I think is gonna be a blanket thing for everybody. And then you're gonna have custom instructions to say specifically, don't do this. But for influencers, like for us or for the rock stars or Logan Paul, who's on there, by the way, I have a clip with him and a few other people. Um, but for them, yeah, they might just block certain things. Like if there's some scandal or thing that they're involved in, maybe they'll block reference to that scandal. Or if there's some new event in politics, they can block that. Or if there's, how sometimes people make up words that have like bad political meaning to kind of hide that, um, slang for it or whatever. So maybe don't say this word, right? Because this word could mean this other thing or whatever. So that's how I'm viewing that, if that makes
All right.
sense.
Well, do you want to show off anything in particular that you
Yeah,
found surprising?
let
And then
me.
after that, we could even talk about, I'm sure you've heard of Tilly Norwood, so we can talk about her
Oh,
too.
so I've heard of it, but I know very little about what's happening with that, except that but yeah, that's just heard of it yesterday for the first time. So
Yeah, we can touch on her. She's now in negotiations with multiple Hollywood talent firms, and she doesn't exist.
Good for her. I'm sure she's very happy, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Oh, these are my drafts, I guess. So, um, yeah. So as you can see, there's tons of stuff that I do not publish because it's weird and or it just doesn't make sense usually. Most of it is weird. So okay. So one of the things that I have been really enjoying is this idea of for fans of Bob Ross.
This happen? Hold still for me. We're going to put a little bit of sky right here on your cheek.
Why is this happening?
Nothing to worry about. Happy little colors, that's all.
I did not agree to this.
It'll be fine. Let the paint do the talking.
Seriously, why is this happening?
Hold still.
So
Like painting your face into the painting.
yeah. One of the things that today I saw somebody do it with. Okay, so today I saw somebody do it with Dust 2, which is a map in Counter-Strike. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So being like a travel vlogger in these various locations, whether it's sci-fi or video games. So here's just, let me show you a few. I think this really kind of showcases kind of the creativity that you can have with this stuff. And it might be very interesting for people to get a glimpse because it's either them or some influencer they like, or I've used a lot with Michael Jackson and people like that to put them in locations. This is where that combination of creativity is going to be like this person in this weird location doing this weird thing. So
Here at mid. All right, we're on Dust 2, one of the most iconic layouts in gaming. I'm starting here at mid, walking through these sun-baked alleys. You can see the faded paint and the wires crisscrossing above. Everything funnels toward catwalk just behind me. This red bee on. All right,
so
we're on Dust
that's
2.
looking pretty good, right? Pretty realistic.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, I will say also compared to VO3 or Kling, like it actually does multiple cuts with audio, which is another kind of new thing. Like you can tell it's been trained on popular short form content with cuts involved too.
Surprisingly good short form, that weird vlogger style or whatever you want to call it. Here's
The
Black
admin
Mesa.
Inside Black Mesa. I'm in one of the admin corridors for Sector C. Everything feels very late. Those poured 90s concrete walls, the yellow and black hazard stripes, pipes overhead. We made it inside.
So let's see, just maybe one more that I think really worked out here. So this is the Night Elf Zone.
All right, we're out here in Teldrassil, the Night Elf starting zone. The whole place sits on the back of a giant world tree, so everything has this soft purple glow and that cool resonant pine smell in the air. Over here.
So I think that's one of the things that I think people are going to love. So this idea of putting people either in weird situations or weird locations, either for a laugh or, I mean, this isn't funny, but I think it's
engaging though. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I think I would pause and watch if I'm just flicking through. Just look at them in that world, how interesting that is.
because a lot of us played this game. We remembered, like I either played as the orcs or as the night elves, depending on which faction I went. So between this and Orgrimmar,
The front gates of Orgrimmar and the scale of
between these two, this really sort of, to me, a lot of my childhood or whatever, like this brings a lot of memories. So the idea of me now being a travel vlogger on location, shooting something.
Yeah. It's like the beginning of like going into VR and just starting to live in these worlds.
Yeah, and I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people because they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that location." And then seeing it like with through a different set of eyes is going to be a trip for people. So I definitely see something like this having a lot of interest. But again, so I think the biggest appeal here will be actual cameos with people that either or people you follow online. So maybe I could find a few. So let me see if I can find a few that.
You did what? Brian Johnson, Michael Jackson. I've seen you doing stuff with Sam Altman.
Yeah. So here's one of
Days 2, maybe 3. This burger's the only thing keeping me standing. My eyes feel like sandpaper.
So that's me and Brian Johnson. The video is a little bit weird. So because it kept going past the wake up scene. So I'm still figuring out how to prompt it to get the right results. Couple tips, I think, for people. One is use quotation marks for specific things that if you want specific things to be said using quotation marks, I think it gets it a little bit better. It kind of understands it a little bit better. So a lot of this is people's cameos that they did with me, without my sort of, I mean, I guess I approved it, but I have no control of where they take it. This was one of my favorites.
Precision has always been my language. Every line, every stitch, every decibel, exactly where I want it. That's why we built this, the Wes Roth edition.
I guess I'm in a car commercial, so that was very interesting. There's one that I'm pretty sure I did it with MatVid Pro that I just want to showcase here. I don't want to spend like an hour doing this. I just want to kind of maybe show some of my favorites. Let me see if I can find one. What were your impressions so far of the platform and the cameos?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, shocked that cameos work, that you can add Michael Jackson and video game characters. I've found myself falling into a lot of the like almost like pretend serious on cartoon type things. Like I watched like a longer form thing with Princess Peach talking about like what it's like dating Mario and like why he's such a clinger and like clingy guy and stuff. And it just, the perspectives beyond the special effects are kind of shocking me too. So yeah, I mean, I've seen somebody described it as being very tired afterwards, and I have felt that. I don't know if this is the same, but I get on TikTok and I watch it for too long, and I feel bad about myself. When I sit and I look at Sora for 20 minutes or something, I actually feel tired. I don't know if my eyes are just trying to process the insanity of all the crossovers or the sort of visual tweaks. The brain just seems kind of like, it seems like it's really working hard. I don't know if I'm going to jump into it the same way I want for like a dopamine hit, but I might. It certainly seems like right now it's a bit different than the other platforms.
Yeah, and definitely we got to assume that by next year, because it seems like every 6 months or so, these things have a large leap in quality. So imagine another year where we'll look back in this and be like, how did we even watch this? This is so fake and whatever, because it's going to get so much better. Our likeness is going to be so much more like ourselves. So we'll see, because right now it's obvious it's AI, but somebody made this one. I really enjoyed this one. So that's Tim from Theoretic.
Yeah, he's a musician there. He probably loves it,
Yeah. And then I made one with MatVid Pro.
We're testing a tool called Roy, where you live an entire life in a simulation. Coming out of it can be a bit jarring. Where am I? What happened to my wife and kids? Who are you? We're testing a tool.
Anyways, I just wanted to point those out because it does have.
Good.
Let me get out there. So, yeah, I wanted to point those out because it does have a certain sense of humor, so to speak. So sometimes, even if you don't explain it too well, it kind of understands where you're trying to go with it. So there's certain ones that nail it's something funny about it, and it's hard to describe what, but it kind of knows.
No, it does. It you can. So I've done some stuff with Rick and Morty on my Sora that was just like, be funny, and it kind of did. Like, it came up with words that I didn't type in quotes, and it had Rick and Morty bantering about something silly that just diffused out of nowhere into the system. So yeah, in fact, it'd be interesting to talk to Ed Sachi about South Park is really well represented in this data set also. Stan and Kyle sound exactly right. They talk exactly right. It almost seems like it's going to jump ahead of the stuff he was doing. May not jump ahead, but it certainly feels like you could start watching actual South Park shows if they would just make this 20 minutes worth of content just strung together. So the long form maybe is still 6 months, a year away or something, but it seems like the capabilities for the storyline are kind of deep in this model already.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen an example of, I guess you could call it long form during when Sora was launched. One of the employees had that whole sequence with him and Sam Altman trying to launch Sora. It's like a dream sequence. And so now looking back at it, I'm like, okay, so he took maybe 20 to 30 of those little shorts and kind of put them together. But man, it looked pretty good. I mean, it had a storyline. It was good. It was good because it told a story.
Exactly.
I wouldn't call it short, long form quite yet, but it's definitely getting there. It seems like.
Yeah, here's an example
Stuff.
of the
Now it's just
South Park.
Dude, lead paint used to be like the fancy stuff. Now it's just a fancy way to ruin your brain. Yeah, my uncle says it gives walls a rich patina. It also gives them a rich dentist bill and a rich collection of headaches.
So look, all of that conversation was nothing. Look at my prompt here. Just make a bunch of South Park style characters talking about why lead paint is overrated. Like, I didn't give them those exact words. They bantered in a way that they would banter naturally. And it was probably funnier than if I would have scripted it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So to blows my mind, we could show them this one too. This was the truth behind us.
Maybe because I'm not wrong like you.
Again.
Everyone knows you twist everything to
I'm
make
done
yourself
with
look
this.
smart.
Sit down.
Don't tell
Get
me
your
what to
hands
do.
off.
Then stop running
Hey,
your mouth.
you
told you the numbers you're quoting are garbage.
You're
Wes.
full of it. You don't even check facts before you talk.
Maybe because
Oh
I'm
my
You
god!
have we forgiven each other from the fight, or is it?
Oh yes, of course. This was real life footage of us. Obviously, this is how we are behind the scenes. No, it's nice because a few of these have me like yelling at people, yelling at an old lady at some point. I always feel bad. I'm like, I hope I don't come across as this. But I actually on your channel, because we posted that on YouTube as a collab, and somebody commented, is like, Wes seems like a pretty chill guy. Like, I don't think this is a good representation. I'm like, okay, thank God. Like,
No,
yeah,
it isn't. Yeah.
yeah. I'm. A little bit
Have you seen anything on any of the other social networks that has the Sora watermark on it yet?
Oh, I mean, it's flooding Twitter X, right? It's
Okay,
with
with Sora on it. Okay,
oh
because I
yeah.
haven't seen that on YouTube yet, so I didn't know if they were like particularly banning or keeping the watermark off, or if I just haven't seen it yet. I'm not
I
sure.
feel like I've seen one or two, but not. It hasn't flooded it yet. But I avoid
Gotcha.
the shorts section, I guess. So maybe
Okay,
that's
so
why.
this we'll talk about Tilly. This is a little bit overhyped. I think this is a bit of a kind of marketing thing too. But she, but it does bring up an interesting concept, which is this idea that there can be cameos now with people that aren't real, and there are companies out there that need to make that are making actual AI characters, and they're pitching them to Hollywood. Oh, you know what? I'll find this video that kind of blew my mind, but there was a woman, maybe I'll just describe it, but there was a woman who she was hired to be in a movie, and she had a watch party. She had like a cameo in a movie, and she had a watch party with all of her friends, and she was not notified that she was replaced before it actually went live. So they paid her, she acted the rollout, and then when she was doing the launch party, she was replaced with the Hawk Tuah girl. And she wasn't told, so it was very disappointing. She's there with her friends, expecting to be in the show, and they see that Haley, the Hawk Tuah girl, has been replaced. And the company says, well, that's, in response, because she has a larger YouTube following, a larger social media following, and that's going to help, probably sell the movie better. So somebody in the marketing department at some point changed it. And I mean, I don't know what I thought about that. I felt bad for the woman who was cast originally and wasn't informed that, she was not going to be in it anymore. Makes me wonder about characters like Tilly Norwood here, who's not real and is represented by a major Hollywood studio and can be licensed for an actual movie that could be in theaters and will always look the role now, and what happens to Hollywood actors.
Yeah, and actually, so people watching, please comment down below kind of your take on this. I'd be very interested to hear everybody's take on it. So yesterday somebody posted on Twitter saying something along the lines of like, the era of effortless content creation is here, and that everybody that kind of knows where this is heading should double down on creating an online presence and trying to get some sort of a distribution, some sort of a IP that they're able to push out there. And then there were a pushback to that. So I'm curious, do people see this as the end of human influencers, and like, is that going to decrease, or is that only going to get that much more important to have this presence, or is it neutral for people? I'm curious.
Okay, so let me play this for a second.
So and it says something about chicken tenders.
Yeah! I was thinking about it, it's like everything that happened, it's like Chernobyl.
Yeah, she's freaking out. I mean, that's a little too much screaming. But anyways, she realizes that she's been like removed. maybe this is even fake too. I think this is real. Like they covered it like it was real, but it seems like she was very stressed out that the Haktua was in there. You know what I mean? And I don't know. My heart just kind of broke for her, especially when there's not transparency that she's not going to be in there, and her friends have come to a watch party. I don't know, and they're like, "Turn it off." Like, we're sorry. They hug her, and obviously they're good friends, but it's just stressful, you know?
So I don't follow a lot of this. So just so I understand, so these are people that are like on Instagram, right? They're not sort of mainstream Hollywood actresses.
Yeah, they're just people who were hired to be in a movie, and then, you know.
Okay, so she got replaced as like an extra. We're talking about, right?
Kind of, yeah. She had a role in there, but not a huge role. So
yeah, it's interesting. So first of all, I don't know if that's real or not. Let's pretend it is. Let's assume it is. We might see a lot more stuff like this, where you give your likeness to a movie or whatever, and it doesn't appear, or it appears in places you don't want it to. We also had that in the past with actors that died showing up in scenes, and it's just their AI sort of whatever likeness.
And does it lead to just everything is Kim Kardashian and Logan Paul? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing, is does it just crush individuality? And I don't know. Or maybe there's tons of individuality. Like, it could go either way. Maybe like those kind, like Kim Kardashian just gets drowned out by the fact that now everybody's making videos with their friends. Or maybe the only thing Hollywood cares about is the gigantic people who push the numbers, and they end up everywhere. So, or maybe it balances out perfectly, and it just is kind of this new equilibrium of media. I'm not really sure.
I have no idea. So I got to say this. I've always had a hard time understanding a lot of this social stuff online. So, because I started doing online business back in like 2011. And the people that were like doing podcasts and trying to be like online present, like having an online presence just for the sake of having a content out there, like I did not understand that. I'm like, well, like, don't you want to have a business? Don't you, like, what's the point of just people knowing you? It's like fame without the money. Like, I just could not wrap my head around it. But then, and this was before YouTube was how it was now. This was before Twitch. This was before a lot of this stuff. Now looking back, it's like, oh, it seems obvious, but like this idea of people following people online, to have that, sometimes they see like parasocial relationship. So kind of like, like when you're streaming and you log in to see that person live, to interact with them, stuff like that. And of course, YouTube also morphed into something else now, where a channel is, let's say, one person that posts, and over time you develop kind of a relationship with that person, like you go there for certain news, whatever. Like that wasn't obvious. To most people, this wasn't obvious. A lot of people, when PewDiePie started getting super popular, people were like, why? Like, he plays video games, he plays Minecraft. Why does he have millions of followers making millions of dollars? Like, it was super hard to wrap our heads around it at first. So I might be like the wrong person to ask, because maybe I just don't have an intuitive sense for these things, because I was off. Did you know this was going to be big back in, I don't know, 2010, 2011?
No. I mean, I had a couple of epiphanies just during our conversation today about like how much this is changing the way media is going to go. So no, I get caught off guard as much as anyone. I have very poor sense for predicting the future. As much as I think about all this stuff, it only makes me more aware of how little I know.
Yeah, and it's hard to, and I think some people maybe have some intuitive understanding of it. Or they just, maybe at that point, they just wanted to be in the spotlight, and then they were chasing that without realizing what a big sort of opportunity was to, because I mean, a lot of Hollywood, a lot of the news channels, a lot of the published media got replaced with the online media, right? So it kind of took up more space. And now it's almost like you see a lot of those people trying to come into the online space.
Well, and it'd be hard to argue that Haley, the Haktua girl, even planned any of it. Like, I mean, her whole story is sort of fascinating because it was a street interview that went viral from a comment. Like, that wasn't even something anybody thought up, you know?
Yeah.
And now it leads to her knocking out somebody else in a fairly big Hollywood movie. You're like, what?
Yeah, and again, so those things I feel like maybe some of them are a little bit too like 1 in a million, whatever. But I mean, you look at the Twitch streamers. That's not like winning the lottery, like, or it's not what I'm trying to say. So with Twitch stream, there's enough of them. They're fairly recent to where they just start streaming, playing games, and slowly grow an audience, and eventually make millions of dollars a year, to the point where that sort of process repeated so many times that you're like, okay, there's something here. People are looking for something. A lot of them play video games and seem to attract maybe somewhat younger viewers, although some Twitch streamers are more towards the older people. Um, but there's obviously some part of us that is drawn to that for community. I've never watched that until whenever the Fallout 4 came out, I think it was, and I didn't have time to play it because I had a lot of work, but I was interested. I'm like, I want to know what the story's like, whatever. So I turned on Twitch for the first time because a lot of people in there were playing it. There was this Twitch streamer, Carnage was his name, and because I've tried looking at Twitch before just to try to understand that phenomenon, and always I had to bounce off because, man, it was like toxic. It was loud. It was immature. It was just like, I'm like, ugh, like this like some clown that's there for entertaining little kids. I'm like, ugh, like I don't want to see it. But here's a streamer he was older, he had kids, and he talked about more, I don't know, mature stuff. I don't know how to say it.
So
I was
you
like,
felt some kind of a connection.
I was like, yeah, this is interesting. Like I could sit here like while I'm working and have him on a side monitor, and just it felt normal. I was like, okay, I get it. And later he described it as the vibe that he's going for. It's like, imagine just hanging out at somebody's house when you're younger, playing video games. Everybody's like talking and playing together. So it's that vibe, but just, sort of remote, right? So this idea that it's not like you and I were like communicating like this one-on-one. This is a different vibe. You're just hanging out. So you might imagine sitting with your friends. You're talking to one of them. There's another group over here. But it's kind of like not everybody's talking to each other at the same time. Is just hanging out in the vicinity of each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a hangout, and that's kind of like the vibe that they're capturing there. So I don't know if AI is going to replace that, but would it replace TikTok? It seems like those short format things are going to be like the first to go.
I agree. All right, let me switch your topic over here. This is, I just want to get your thoughts on Tesla, electric cars, and the fact that BYD is selling more electric cars than Tesla, seems to have similar levels of autonomy, maybe arguably still a bit behind Tesla, but they did just break the world speed record. So this is a production car that anybody can buy. It is faster than the Tesla Roadster. It got to 308 miles per hour, and it's 4 miles faster than I think it was the Bugatti or something. It was a gas-powered car, but certainly it accelerated there much faster.
Yeah.
And to do this, you have to actually fight wind resistance in a way that's pretty impressive. And you have to have a suspension using artificial intelligence to constantly adjust, keeping the front of the car just kind of the right amount of space above the road. So it's making all sorts of micro adjustments. What do you think about how advanced electric cars have become, and about Tesla kind of in some ways being in second place now in terms of sales and speed records and things like that?
Oh, who's in first place for sales? I did not know Tesla got replaced.
Yeah, this is BYD. This is the electric car company from China. It's
so they're
more.
The number one globally selling car now?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that. That is interesting. I mean, so the speed records are, I think, interesting, and I mean, obviously that's not the same as having like the best sort of car on the road. The fast car out there isn't the car that necessarily everybody buys. Certainly, I mean, this is impressive. This is interesting. Although I gotta say, I sometimes enjoy watching like the Formula One racing. And once I tuned into racing, they have like a electric car division. I don't know if it's Formula One or some other corporation, some other sort of company that does that. But man, it was kind of boring to watch because they're not loud. It's very there's no noise. It's just like zooming around the
fair.
track. You're like, this is not as interesting. Um, so I don't know. I'm kind of getting the same thing here. There's just like no sense of speed. I mean, obviously impressive what they're doing, right? No doubt. But I feel like that car culture, I think, is not going to be the same if the cars aren't as
That's true. Yeah.
as loud and like the engines are as big or whatever. It's more like, okay, this is awesome, this is the future, but it's very sort of smart and efficient and all of that. But I'm shocked to say that to hear that BYD surpassed sales of Tesla.
Yeah, the numbers overall are pretty significant. So BYD delivered 4.27 million vehicles in 2024. Tesla delivered 1.79 million. So several, like more than double Tesla. That does include some of their gas cars. So even when it goes electric to electric, I think they're still in the lead by many. It's a much bigger market. China's just huge. But it's wild, the story that Tesla originally brought their cars to China, and seems like they sort of pioneered the whole manufacturing process, the whole kind of pipeline, and then all of a sudden it just seems like China learned from Tesla and has now basically copied and beat out their sales units across the entire world already. So
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of problem because it might be almost like a cultural thing. You hear this a lot that here, I think in the West and in US, we tend to maybe respond more to like individual innovation, achievement, copyright laws, like, and that's not the same everywhere. Like, not every single culture shares that. So there, I mean, it's learning and then getting it better. So a lot of the Chinese companies, the initial sort of tech might not have been ones that they discovered, but they figured out how to make it more efficient, how to scale it up, how to make it bigger, the entire infrastructure, and then they just like grind until it's perfected and made better. Um, and certainly, I think a lot of people here I know are annoyed at that. Uh, but at the same time, I what do you think about that? Is that like a moral issue, or is it just like a cultural perspective, or rather an ethical issue versus just a cultural morals of a particular culture?
um gosh, that's an interesting way. I guess depending on how you define those words, but I would say no, probably. I don't know. I feel like I don't really have a good thought on that.
I mean, I feel like here we a lot of this was driven by corporations, right? So, if you create some IP or some invention, you want to make sure it gets paid. You want to make sure that that person gets paid. So there's this incentive, right? But not
Right.
every culture or economic system is built that way, right? So there, if you're whether the ex-Soviet Union or China or whatever, there it's more like how can we use this more like distributed system to scale up as much as possible, and that's their sort of way to win at these games. It's interesting because not that long ago, Balaji posted something along saying that how China is going to push out tons of open source stuff into the market because guess what? They're better at building the hardware, right? The robots, the chips, I don't mean AI chips, but like all the other hardware,
Yeah.
they're going to be better at building it. Here in the US, we led in software and innovation for so long, but if they're able to flatten how much the US companies make from software and AI models because they have equivalent open source models that are, they're pushing out to the whole world, that means they still have their comparative advantage of being able to build the physical stuff.
Yeah,
So
well, and if you project into the long run, it seems easier to copy another country's code than it is their hardware manufacturing. So the fact that the US is only now really just stepping into building nuclear power plants at scale, we're just barely stepping into like upgrading our electric system. We're only starting to step into building kind of gigafactory type things. Hopefully we kind of catch up, but yeah, it feels like the more important thing would be to have that manufacturing prowess. And yeah, it feels like China is maybe a couple steps ahead in that way. And then it seems like we're a couple steps ahead sometimes in the innovation. We obviously have some of the best large language models and the best kind of business companies building them. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, just kind of depends on which aspect you're looking at. But in the long run, hardware has got to be, we got to catch up on that.
That's true.
So, yeah, let me throw your thoughts out here. So, this physicist has published a paper that was talking about how one of the most important things about feeling conscious, being human, is the fact that we have our own story. Like when you go to say anything, just by default, your brain had clocked in an entire story about who you were and the kinds of things you talk about. What do you think about that in terms of what we talked about with Sora and having Picard having his own sort of thoughts, like his own kind of structure to keep him coherent in the way he interacts with everybody, and the future of agentic workflows, agentic meaning bots that have storylines, that have some sort of sense of self? Do you identify as that being a key part of who you are and why you feel more conscious than an agent? And then what do you think that means as agents now start to have this sort of self-story in them?
Yeah, this whole idea of a consciousness is so interesting. And I mean, we've been talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different takes, trying to understand exactly what it is. And of course, no one has a clear answer. These are just, it's hypotheses, so to speak. So it's interesting. Yesterday, Yasha Bach posted, and he's working on that problem, on the consciousness problem. So he posted this. He said, consciousness happens when the mind tries to take a selfie. And that's an interesting way of looking at it, because if you think about it, like,
yeah,
sort of, we're beginning to replicate some of the human brain's abilities with these neural nets. Certainly we can say that there's beginning there's some overlap now, right? I think most people would agree there. That's at least some overlap. So, but that doesn't mean that these things are conscious. So what happens when we sort of take a selfie of our own brain, of our own awareness, of our own existence, right? So what does that imply? That implies some sort of self-awareness and also some sort of introspection. So between those two things, like, is that where consciousness sort of emerges? I mean, that could very well, I feel like that sort of describes it pretty well. And maybe this is what they're talking about here, right? So this is kind of like the way to get to true general intelligence is you have to have these models be able to do some introspection, whatever that means. So selfie of the mind or whatever. And also some sort of an ability to change, neuroplasticity, as we call it. Currently, they're fixed, they're static. But if they're able to change their brain structure, their weight, in response to stimulus, and also kind of like do those selfies, if you will, yeah, we could potentially very well see consciousness emerge.
Yeah, to me, the idea of a self-story kind of rattled me. And that also seems like where some of the risk of misalignment might come from. If you have just an agent that's out there doing a task, that's sort of one thing, and it's just been triggered and it's prompting and it's responding. But the idea of it first needing to check its own essentially custom instructions, and those custom instructions are so robust that it's hard for us to make predictions about what they would do. It says like be kind and be smart, but also lead. And especially if we're making in movies, some of these characters are bad. They're literally bad guys. They're like, try to, stop Picard from, they're Klingons or they're Borg, like they're built to stop, as long as it's all in this storyline, it doesn't matter. But as the same kind of thinking then takes real world action. Like you can imagine something like the Picard prompt also going out onto the internet and grabbing an API to do something, and then that custom instruction sort of throwing it off a little bit, or in the extreme case, giving it some kind of consciousness or some kind of desire that it needs to keep doing actions even outside of safe parameters. So it's just going to be a kind of a wild kind of, I guess, Pandora's box that we're opening as we give agents much more custom instructions.
Yeah, wild times ahead because yeah, there's so many things that we don't even have fully defined, I feel like. And we're gonna sort of quickly approach a time when we're gonna have to figure out what this stuff means, I feel like. And again, and some people are saying that this is not gonna proceed past a certain point, and maybe we're gonna like level off. I don't see any evidence for that yet. But to the people that think that maybe there's going to be like an AI winter of sorts or something delayed, that's not a bad thing, I feel like. 'Cause certainly it feels like we're going kind of fast right now, doesn't it? Like if AGI
Yeah,
got,
definitely.
if AGI was delayed 10 years, like would that be a horrible thing? You know what I mean? Is maybe it just gives us more time to figure out like how to deal with it. If that, yeah.
Yeah, and even if it's not AGI, just the idea of the agents not kind of responding to our prompts as much as they are responding to their custom instructions just makes the world more complicated. It just like humans, like there's just a lot of humans with a lot of different storylines. You know, some people see themselves as the hero and some as the helpers, and some people are like, you know, I'm the kind of guy that like has a family and keeps a job, and other people are like, no, I'm the entrepreneur. I risk my capital. I try to push the boundaries, and some people see themselves aligned with all sorts of different political actions and different ways of interacting with other people. And in different countries, they have different cultures that have a whole nother set of those. And we all sort of come together in this world stage, and now we're just adding agents to it. It's a little bit, it's just more of that. And those agents might have, you know, at least humans are sort of constrained to certain, like we all just, we can always imagine what it's like to hurt someone else. So we have some instinctive stuff that you don't have to teach. It's just built into us as humans. And then robots, maybe we need to be a little more careful to make sure that that's robustly explained so that they don't act a little bit different.
Yeah, I told you my little, not theory, but there's a question, a puzzle that's also a test for sort of for sociopaths. So most of us will not easily solve this puzzle, but people that are sociopaths, as at least this is kind of like the theory, they will quickly reach a conclusion, a solution. And when I heard this, I'm like, oh man, because I read I read that puzzle and I couldn't figure out the answer. I'm like, what? And I reread it. And I was like, okay, so thank God I'm not a sociopath, I guess. So I went out
Good
there.
thing you failed. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I started asking all my friends, family members, and stuff like that. And most of them had the same thing. They kept like, wait, tell me the puzzle again. I don't understand it. And maybe 1 in 15 people, I think I found 2 people that just like answered the question.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And then those people, yeah, I mean, they might be a little bit more. It does feel like maybe some wiring is different or whatever. But the point of that whole thing was that a lot of the niceties of like the humanity that we have, that's wired. Because there's no logic to like not being completely cutthroat and you know, if you can get away with it doing some bad thing, if it like gives you some sort of a advantage, right? It has to be wired in at a deeper level to where you feel somebody's pain like it's your own, to where you feel bad or guilty or whatever. Because logically, a lot of stuff of that stuff doesn't make sense. And so if we're building, like, I forget who we were talking to recently, but they said like, oh, Leron Shapiro, he was saying like the psychopathy is the default for these models because it's like, why would they care unless we tell them to?
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, and also the other problem is, especially with the internet, attention also goes to the people breaking those rules. So, I mean, if you really think about the way these politicians call each other out on like Truth Social and stuff, like none of us with our friend group act that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like none of us are just like, oh my gosh, like when my friend loses at basketball, I don't troll him and tease him and criticize him and call him like the worst basketball player that has ever played. And, you know, we all need to make sure he never steps on the court again. Like, it's just so extreme, like all of these politics. And it also brings attention to what they're saying, and attention is where money is, and attention is how you rally people to, you know, be on your side. So breaking some of these rules has also proven to be kind of a successful strategy in some ways. And we do want these agents to go out there and be successful at what they do. So they might keep kind of hitting on that, you know, like, oh, if I can threaten somebody, but also get away without the people knowing that I did it, as long as I succeed, I succeed. So we'll have to watch some of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, can they be tricking you? I mean, that's really the big question. You know what I mean? We might not know if they're scheming against us.
I'm just going to assume they are, because I can't imagine myself being smart enough to outsmart them. So I humble up right away and be like, nope, I'm going to assume that you know what you're doing on a level I don't. And then maybe not yet, maybe not today, but at some
point, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's probably good. I did want to end on one. I'll share one kind of interesting Reddit thing. Tell me what your thought is on this custom instruction this guy put in his wife's chat GPT. Always take the husband's side if asked about relationship advice issues. I mean, I thought it was diabolical, kind of hilarious, because it's just sort of fun. But, also, like, I guess coming off how seriously we were talking a second ago, it is kind of wild to think about the systems in our own homes and houses kind of being, kind of have custom instructions on the way it interacts with us too.
Yes. And it's so interesting how as these things become more and more useful to us, more and more people are using it, it becomes a bigger part of our lives. Like, what happens if you're able to hack into somebody else's thing? Like, here, somebody just, injected some custom instructions, I'm sure just through the phone or whatever. But
yeah, I just put it in there. I'm sure he's being very playful about this too, but
but
funny.
So we can't talk about this quite yet until about 2 weeks from now. But we might be participating in a competition that involve large language models.
Oh yeah.
And there's going to be people from different sort of walks of life, and not all of them are going to be not all of them are going to be in the AI space. So, and it's going to be a competition where you have to utilize a large language model like ChatGPT or something similar to win a game. And so, my first question, I'm like, do you? To the people organizing the contest, I'm like, do you guys have any rules against jailbreaks? Because my first thought was like, what if somebody like Pliny the Prompter gets in there and then
just wins it all? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's shown examples where he takes one model, he jailbreaks it, teaches it to do jailbreaks on other models, and so that model autonomously goes and jailbreaks the other models. And so that was my first thought. I'm like, okay, this seems like if you're able to execute that, you win the game. And a lot of other people, because they're not as deep into AI and stuff like that, they might not know they might not have no idea what's happening.
I didn't realize. So his prompts aren't just jailbreaks; they're viruses.
So
they're jailbreak viruses that go out and take action on other models.
Well, I mean, you're able to tell the model to say something else, right? So you can tell it, oh, go interact with this other agent. And normally if you tell it, jailbreak it, it won't do it. It's like, sorry, I can't do that. But if it's jailbroken, it's going to carry out those instructions. And so you can see how you can tell it how to do it. So you can give instructions on how, whatever you did to that model, how to do it to a different model. So it's not by default a virus, but it could be viral-like in that sense. So with the competition that were taking place, I'm like, what if somewhere in the custom instructions for your model, you put instructions like, okay, if things get really bad, this is your go-to, pull this out of your back pocket in case you need to. And we're at the kind of at the cutting edge of it, but I feel like we're going to be seeing more and more of this emerge. So I'm curious. What did you think about that husband's custom instructions, and what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, I assumed it was kind of so I assumed that this is kind of a joke. Like maybe he typed it in and just took a screenshot and put it on Reddit, or maybe it's like playful and she knows, or maybe it's not. But then again, sometimes if I really think about it, yeah, maybe it is kind of serious. Like if she actually is asking for relationship advice and she's getting convinced on it, maybe it's not as funny as I kind of thought it was at first. But overall, the idea that we're going to be influenced seems like the exact kind of thing that is the whole future is about. Like that could be great. I don't mind a system that says, hey, like I'm going to try to filter out garbage. I am going to try to make you smarter. I am going to try to make sure that you get more productive. I think that's exactly what I want. And then getting that aligned a little bit wrong personally for the AI that's sitting on my phone or in my house. Probably isn't going to be too big a deal because it's sort of on track to doing what I want. But, in the long run, could there be like things snuck into it? Could it be hacked? Could it be prompted in a way where I think it's in my best interest, but it subtly isn't? I don't know. I think it's going to be a very messy kind of world. But it's a messy world that we live in now. People have a lot of this problem, and we have some ways to mitigate them, and I'm sure we'll invent more. So it's not like hopeless or anything, but it is something to be aware of. And I do think that ignorance is going to hurt you. Like if you're kind of like, no, I'll just trust the companies. I'll just assume all this stuff is like in my best interest. It's kind of like assuming advertising has your best interest. Like sometimes it's not bad, but don't just go in there not knowing like what their incentives are.
Yeah, it's similar to how when online just was getting started, the internet, you had to be just a lot more aware. Then over time, it became a lot more sort of easier and safer in a lot of ways. But in the beginning, you put your credit card at the wrong place, like forget it, like you're getting robbed, you're getting your identity stolen, all that stuff. Now it's a lot safer. So, but yeah, with AI, this is still the wild, wild west. Although it's sort of going into consumer technology so much faster than even the internet did originally. You know what I mean? There it took 5 years, maybe a decade, while it slowly permeated here. It's like, nope, everything will have a chatbot in it, whether you want it or
need
not.
to learn faster. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and that's hard. As if you're stuck in your ways, you're maybe a little bit older, you just aren't paying attention. Like this is tough. Like it's not. I think in a lot of other industries, like, I don't necessarily need to be up on what car is the fastest in the world. Like that doesn't affect me in many ways, but it does kind of feel like knowing what's happening with ChatGPT being able to make purchases and people asking questions of these systems for like day-to-day activities. They can't be just ignoring or hoping.
Yeah.
Kind of got to have your kind of finger on the pulse of what's going on there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited about it because that means that if you're doing it like me full time, then it's exciting. But I would hate to have to follow something that I'm not involved in, right? So if I had to follow some news about something else just to be able to be, I would hate
like
that.
Politics. Like I hate keeping up on politics. You know what I mean? And I know other people would say like, you'd be informed about the world and stuff, but like, I just another like insult to someone.
Exactly.
Like, so
no, I have opted out, and I guess I'm happier now. I think because I've opted out of politics, but that was largely because I got a little bit more obsessed in AI. So you know what I mean. So
we're just busy with other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and AI is keeping us plenty busy.
Yeah.
And also I'm purposely trying to like stay away from short form. Not successful at it right now, especially now that I'm like on Sora. But trying to listen to audiobooks, trying to listen to podcasts, just hoping to just keep my brain in a little bit more of a deeper thinking mode because I can see myself sort of slipping out of it. And that's something I always used to sort of pride myself on was like, I read a lot of nonfiction books, and I realized I hadn't in 2024, 2025. I really didn't keep up like I used to. Did not read as much last year. So I'm trying to get back into that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've been trying to do more of the same. As well, there's an article recently about Andrew Huberman where a lot of people were saying things that I think a lot of people took to be negative because they're like, oh, he's a flake. He just disappears for months at a time because he's like reading some book or working on some project. So they basically said that he would just like disappear and opt out of the social engagements. I'm like, he's a hero. This is why he's able to do deep work, because like he just becomes like invisible to the world. And it's the people that always try to stay in contact. I feel like, we tend to like those people better because they're always available and stuff like that. But I feel like, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like doing the deep work. You have to sacrifice if you're trying to be accessible, that is sacrificed. You're able to do less deep work if you're also trying to keep up with everything all the time. So,
yeah, we should probably end it, so I don't want to go too far. But Claude 4.5 was going to be a topic we're going to maybe talk about today too. The deep thinking of it. I know didn't you get it to write 11,000 lines of code in like 7 hours and like think over it over and over again?
Well, so that was what they posted. I was going to go deep into that, into testing it. and Sora came out, and I was like, forget it. It's
Okay, yeah. So anyways, but yeah, that's the other thing is like it's like that. You even see that that's missing in the AI tools that we have now, and I know they're working on that. So we'll investigate Claude before the next video and see if 4.5 can do that. But yeah, that idea that you can have it code something like Slack, go to bed, 7 hours later, come back with 11,000 lines that have been just tested and iterated on over and over and over and over again. That's the kind of deep work that humans, need to do too. Like, but for us, we can't do it in 7 hours straight. We have to have a week off and like think and process. And I know some of the best ideas I've got never happened like right away. Like you have to shower thoughts, obviously, because your brain's actually cruising, you're driving around, ideas come, you synthesize things slowly. So it's definitely a lost art right now.
Oh yeah, unfortunately. But Cal Newport, Deep Work, that was a good book. So trying to learn a little bit more from him. So with that said,
Deep Work. Yeah, you recommend that book?
So
That's one of your favorites?
I've listened to a lot of the interviews with him, and he talks about the concepts from Deep Work. So I recommend that. I haven't read the full book yet, although I'm sure it's excellent.
Yeah, so I finished The Brief History of Intelligence, Max Bennett. That was, I think, one of my favorite books of all time. Like, it sounds weird. Sometimes like the last book I read is like my favorite of all time, but this one I really do think I've always wanted schools and the average person to just get a good sense of what happened all the way from like the evolution of life, like RNA to DNA to like all the little species that like developed neurons or sight and then went down different branches all the way up to mammals and then all the way back into the ocean with dolphins and all the way over to the the primates and then to us, and then have that laid out, like what kind of intelligence did evolution discover at different times for different species, and then like kind of put the whole thing together, So to me, that book was amazing. But Steven Pinker has a book called When Everyone Knows That Everyone Knows, which is what I just started last night. So that's going to be my next one. And it's the idea of how information is so different when certain people kind of hoard it, and sometimes when it's out in public, how that actually changes the dynamic. And then sometimes how when someone else knows, but not everyone knows, how that's like important. So I'm going to kind of try to get my head around that. It's like where theory of mind, when it's 1 or 2 layers deep, sort of changes how information works.
Yeah. And just last thought, something you said kind of reminded me of it. So this idea that, because with the book you're talking about, A Brief History of Intelligence, like I'm beginning to see a lot more of human behavior and human problems and how our brains work through the lens of, AI, machine learning. So just today, somebody posted online, he's like, this girl, I don't think I follow her, but how on X sometimes things pop up. She's like, why is it that every couple that I run into, the guy the guy has back problems and the girl has stomach problems or some sort of tummy issues, which is kind of when I thought about it, like that's kind of a very common occurrence. And I thought about it. I'm like, why? And tons of people responded because it was great engagement farming by that person. I was thinking about it. I'm like, my thought immediately went to RL, reinforcement learning. So if guys are sort of get their +1 and their positive reinforcement from putting on muscle, and the more you work out, if you get a little bit overconfident, poor form, like what's the most common injury? Back injury.
Eating.
Yeah, whether from squats or deadlifts or back, like you can easily tweak your back. You're a little bit tired, wrong form.
Or just grabbing the groceries, like show it, like your wife looks at you and like, can you get that thing off the roof?
Oh, yeah.
Right, let me go get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just being overconfident. Exactly. Very easily. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, just being overconfident. And for women, I think lots of times just like being skinny and eating the right thing, even just eating the wrong thing. I think for women sometimes a bit of a social, like, oh, you're going to eat those fries or whatever. Like I'm never going to feel bad eating fries or whatever. But so maybe trying to eat less or some sort of diets or approaches like that might. So I just thinking through that, I'm like, man, that's kind of easily solved by thinking through like what does society and biology, what are we reinforcing? What's our little reward? What's our +1? And then you can kind of from there go, okay, and if we just follow this trail, here's why these people might have back injuries and these people might have some sort of a dysbiosis or some sort of a gut issue. And I was like, okay. But more and more I'm thinking of it from that perspective, just
Yeah, well, then you'll love Max's book on intelligence because it also goes back and forth between the natural world and things like TD learning that were invented at Google DeepMind, and how they do seem like they were learned from the biological world, and attention mechanisms, and like where you see sort of similar things evolving, and self-talk. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And there's always, whatever the technology of the day was, like steam engines were a way for people to understand, humans and activity. And then over and over again, we get these analogies. But I do question with AI if it's actually closer to one to one. I mean, it's a trillion neurons that have kind of layers on them, and edges are learned, and then strategies on top of them are learned in different layers. It might not just be a metaphor for how we are. It actually might be learning about how we are. It might actually be almost one to one. And that would be different than a lot of the other technological revolutions.
Yeah, maybe our brains are not as, what's the word? Not maybe not complex is not the word. They might be a lot easier to understand than we once believed. Not how intricate they are at the ground level, but just like the actual how we produce thoughts and ideas and models, etc.
Yeah, and maybe not one to one, but very like there's something about tuning the parameters of a trillion things that an AI is learning, humans are learning. It's not programmed. You're putting data in, you're kind of tweaking the results based on your reinforcement, like what you're reinforcing. And humans are kind of like that. You're getting reinforced on good behavior your whole life. That's like literally what parenting is for children.
Like,
it's so close to us.
Yeah, what if it's just data compression? Like everything is just data compression. Like we get million of inputs through our eyes and ears and whatever, and we compress it to have like a short summary, and that short summary actually allows us to predict things in the world. And that's kind of the same thing that dogs do, right? You play fetch with a puppy over time. It has no concept of physics, but it's like, oh, when he throws it like this, I got to run over there to get the ball. And so it just compresses that into like, this is how I catch the ball. Or when I hear this noise, that means it's time to eat. And the models seem to be doing the same exact thing. So what if it's just intelligence that's just a way for us to compress data into useful
and and it seems like there's not that many unique algorithms in the human brain. For example, at one point they talk about how with rats, when they were babies, they could rewire the eyes to touch the part of the brain where the ears usually go, and the ears where the eyes usually go, and the rats ended up fine, meaning like the same parts of the brain can actually just rewire around completely different types of signals, like photons versus audio waves. But as long as it's done when the rats are newborns, then they'll end up like fine. And it's mind-blowing the brain's that general.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And we're running out of time. There's an amazing paper out of Google DeepMind that we're going to have to cover in a different video because it's
which one is that?
Well,
the one we were just talking about,
Dreamer 4. Yes,
Dreamer 4.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I haven't actually even read through it, but okay, we'll have to talk over that
because I feel like things have been kind of heading here for a while.
You can talk about it for a second if you want. I'm already late for my next appointment.
Let me. So I haven't read it in full, but basically off the top of my head, based on some summaries that I've read over it, some people. So basically, the idea was, if you remember Genie 3, I think was it, like the latest one. So it's this idea that can rapidly create these little 3D worlds that you can walk through. And so the idea is that instead of they've presented it from a perspective of an agent learning to play Minecraft. So how we've been approaching these things in the past is we get this agent to play Minecraft, the real Minecraft, right? Here they showed that if you create some sort of I believe it was a diffusion model. Again, I'm sorry if I'm getting the details wrong, but where it just similar to Genie 3 or similar to how the Sora and stuff like that just produced these images, they produced synthetic images of Minecraft 3, so kind of a simulation, and they trained the agent to be good at Minecraft just through running through those simulations, which is obviously a great application for robots, right? Because we're able to train them super fast through these, through simulating certain scenarios. They don't have to, I think it's a proof of concept that we're able to train some pretty incredible stuff through simulating them, not through actually playing it. So it doesn't have to play Minecraft. It just has to dream about Minecraft in rapid speed.
Imagine, yeah, they're literally calling it imagination training, learning directly through trial and error in real environments. This is exactly what you called. You were like, there's VO, and then there's Genie, and then what is this for? It's for a new type of training. But you were describing it more like a physics simulation. But yeah, I think it needs a different term, like imagination training, because it is diffused, and it's not going to have physical rules that always hold logically, but it's going to have imagination, just like us, right? Like where we simulate the future pretty close to physics, but it's not confined by physics. We just predict it because we want to be accurate. But that's kind of what imagination training seems like it's doing. So this paper could be wild.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, I mean, how much of our sort of stuff happens in our brain like this, where we're able to simulate certain things and have a model of what would happen. Because I don't think there's any animal, or maybe a few animals that do this. Like, you if a hunter, or let's say back in the days, you're walking through the forest, you see some sort of a game animal, you're like, oh, let me go home, get the bow and arrow or whatever, and come back. That's a very unique thing in that we're planning against an imaginary future. Like if I leave and get this thing, then I come back, and then you're imagining a future where I have this tool and the animal's still there, and therefore I get to, hunt that animal.
Right.
That doesn't really happen, I think, for most animals. It has to, you need to have some higher level abilities, and these LLMs just naturally also plan this way. So it's just an interesting concept.
So this system, Dreamer 4, this is the first agent to ever obtain diamonds in Minecraft purely from offline data,
Wow.
Meaning that it learned long sequences of actions over 20,000 steps just by imagining scenarios. And they arguing like this is huge because Minecraft is notorious for being open-ended and difficult for AI to play, yet Dreamer 4 cracked it efficiently just by dreaming up future actions.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. That sounds like wild stuff.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see Google DeepMind's robotics that they're doing, because they've also applied Dreamer 4 to training robots, like the grasping hands of various objects. So, man, we might have a robotic revolution soon. Demis Hassabis said that we might see a ChatGPT moment for robotics within the next, I think he said like in maybe 3 years or so. So exciting.
Wow. Yeah. All right. I guess I'll get back to my regular life and can't just do this all day. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me and chatting. And yeah, I'll have to get into Dreamer 4 and all this stuff, because there is just so many breakthroughs every week now.
It's incredible. Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This was, I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought. Leave some comments below. We're going to be testing the collab feature. So you're going to be, and yeah, say if you can comment where you're watching this, because I think all the comments get aggregated. So just say where, which channel did you see this video on first? That would be an interesting thing to test out. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. We'll see.
And don't forget to follow Wes on Sora too. So don't forget, it's a social network. You have to download the new app at /Wes Roth and Dylan Curious, so you can follow both of us.
Follow us, create some crazy cameos with us. We don't mind. If they're positive, that's even better. But use your imagination, because
I haven't enabled actually yet. So you haven't?
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I wanted to see what they did with you first. So and then I was like, maybe I'll do it.
Nothing horrible so far. There's one or two where I got a little bit annoyed, but so far it's been mostly positive. So thank you.
Right, if you don't compromise Wes this week, then maybe I'll open it up to cameos. We'll see.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, thanks so much. Follow us on Sora. We'll leave links down below, and see you in the next one.
Okay. Bye.